Hello, welcome to Learn Anatomy of Dr. Vessel, and today we're looking at a very important topic, which is the posterior axio-appendicular muscles. The posterior appendicular muscles are muscles connecting the scapula to the vertebral column. They are muscles connecting the scapula to the vertebral column. They are divided into two groups. We have the deep group and the superficial group. Now, for us to know the muscles connecting the scapula to the vertebral column, we can use this mnemonic: Dr. Rhomboid loves SLT. Dr. Rhomboid loves SLT. The D in doctor will help us to know that we want to talk about the deep group, and R and rhomboid will help us to know to remember the rhomboid major and minor. The L and S in love will help us to remember the Levator scapulae, and these are the deep groups of this muscle: the rhomboid major and minor, and the Levator scapulae. Now the S in SLT helps us remember superficial. The L in SLT help us to remember the Latissimus dorsi, and the T in SLT help us to remember the Trapezius, and these are the superficial group of this muscle: the Latissimus dorsi and the Trapezius. Now for the deep group, we have three of them: the rhomboid minor, the rhomboid major, and the Levator scapulae. Remember, Dr. Rhomboid loves can help us to remember the deep group of this muscle. When you add SLT, you're now trying to add a mnemonic that can help you remember the superficial group of the muscles. Now, for the rhomboid minor, it originates from C7 to T1 spinous process, and it is inserted at the middle end of the spine of the scapula. It is supplied by the dorsoscapular nerve. Originates from C7 to T1 spinous process, inserted at the middle end of the spine of the scapula, and it is supplied by the dorsoscapular nerve. Now for the rhomboid major, it originates from T2 to T5 spinous process. It is inserted at the middle border of the scapula below the spine, and it is supplied by the dorsoscapular nerve. You must note that the minor comes before the major. The major is inserted at the middle end of the spine. Where you see the minor come before major. The minor is inserted at the middle end of the spine, while the major is inserted at the middle border of the scapula below the middle end of the spine. The minor originates from C7 to T1, while the major originates from T2 to T5. So the minor comes before the major. Now for the elevator scapulae muscle, you must note this mnemonic I wrote here: love comes first. Love comes first. From this mnemonic, the love in Dr. Rhomboid loves SLT helps us to remember elevator scapulae muscle. Now this second mnemonic here, love comes first, will help us to remember that the elevator scapular muscle is the first deep muscle, is the first deep axio-appendicular muscle, because it first is originate from the transverse process of C1 to C4. It is the first deep axio-appendicular muscles originating from C1 to C4, and it is inserted at the upper part of the medial border above the spine. So if this is the spine, you get at the medial border of the spine, you see the rhomboid minor. Below the spine, you see the rhomboid major. Above the spine, you see the elevator scapulae. So love comes first. It is inserted at the middle border of the scapula above the spine, and it originates from C1 to C4. So it is first before you get to C minor. Minor comes before major. So this can help you to remember the origin and the insertion of these muscles. Now for the action of this muscle, if you observe, these three deep muscle has the same nerve supply. They are deep muscle. The first letter of deep starts with D, and the first letter of the nerve supply starts with D. Those are scapular nerve. So with that, you can remember that the three deep muscle has the same nerve supply. Now for the actions of this deep muscle, they have the same action. They have the same action, and these actions can be remembered with this mnemonic 3R. The action can be remembered with this mnemonic 3R. The first R help us to remember that it raises the scapula, that is, it elevates the scapula, and this is majorly done by the first muscle. Remember the muscle we call the first muscle here, the elevator scapula, because it love comes first. Love comes first. So the elevator scapula comes first. So it majorly raises the scapula. The second arrow helps us remember that it retracts the scapula. It retracts the scapula, and this is majorly done by the rhomboid muscle. Then the last is that it rotates the scapula downward. It rotates the scapula downward. This is majorly done by all of the muscles. Both the levator scapulae muscle and the rhomboid muscle rotates the scapula downward. So the three functions of the deep muscles of the axio-appendicular muscle can be remembered with 3R: raises, retracts, and rotates downward. Raises, retract, and rotate downward. Now, the next thing we'll be talking about is the superficial muscles. Remember, the superficial muscles can be remembered with SLT because it Dr. Rhomboid loves SLT. The S helps us remember the superficial muscle, L, Latissimus, dorsi, and T, Trapezius. But we'll be starting with the trapezius muscle. The trapezius muscle is a triangular muscle. It originates from the superior nuclear line. External orbital protuberance, ligamentum nuclei, and the C7 and to T12 spinous process. It originates from the superior nuclear line, external occipital protuberance, ligamentum nuclei, and the C7 to T12 spinous process. Now, the upper fiber is inserted at the lateral third of the clavicle, while the medial fibers is inserted at the acromion, junction between the clavicle and the spinous process, and the lower fibers are inserted at the upper lip of the spine. The lower fiber are inserted at the upper lip of the spine. For nerve supply, it is supplied by the spinal accessory nerve C4 to C5 nerve roots, spinal accessory nerve that have the C4 to C5 nerve roots. And the action of this muscle can be remembered with this word DRE. The actions of the muscle can be remembered with DRE, digital rectal examination. Now, the D helps us remember that it depresses the scapula, and the depression of scapula is mostly done by the lower fibers. The depression of scapula is mostly done by the lower fibers. The E helps us remember that it retracts the scapula, and the retraction of the scapula is mostly done by the middle fibers. It retracts the scapula, and the retraction of the scapula is mostly done by the middle fiber. And the last E helps us remember that it elevates the scapula, and the elevation of the scapula is mostly done by the upper fiber. So with DRE, you can remember the muscles function of the trapezius, D for depression of scapula, R for retraction of scapula, and E for elevation of scapula. Now the last superficial muscle we'll be talking about is the latissimus dorsi muscle. It originates from the lower thoracic spine, and the thoracolumbar fascia, the iliac crest, the lower rib, and in the inferior angle. It originates from the lower thoracic spine, the thoracolumbar fascia, the iliac crest, the lower rib, and the inferior angle. It originates from the lower thoracic spine, thoracolumbar fascia, iliac crest, lower rib, and inferior angle, and it is inserted at the floor of the intertubercular groove of the humerus. It is inserted at the floor of the intertubercular groove of the humerus. This muscle is supplied by the thoracodorsal nerve. It is supplied by the thoracodorsal nerve, and with this mnemonic extended arm, you can note the function of the latissimus dorsi. With the mnemonic extended arm, you can note the function of the latissimus dorsi. Extended can help us remember that it undergoes extension. The letter in arm can let us remember that it undergoes adduction. The letter in R can help us remember that it undergoes rotation. And finally, the letter in M can help us remember that it moves the arm backward. It moves the arm backward. So the functions of these muscles are extension, adduction, rotation, that is medial rotation, and it moves the arm backward. It moves the arm backward. With this, we have come to the end of this section on the posterior axio-appendicular muscles. I hope the mnemonics were helpful. Thank you for watching.